Hey guys, Inbounds, of course. Motorhome Rehab Ranch for those that have not been here before. Howdy. We talk about GMC motorhomes, all different kinds of motorhomes. And if you would like to see what we do, it's on patreon.com. If you're watching YouTube, it's free, just like YouTube. Come on over to patreon.com and then put in Motorhome Rehab Ranch, same way you got here, in there. Search for creators. Website will come up immediately. Scroll down, and that's where I am right now. All right, guys. Well, hope to see you on Patreon. So this video is the one that goes along with the fuel delivery system. This is talking about the vapor circuit. Vapor circuit. What a vapor circuit does, it doesn't let the tanks pressurize, because as the fuel's being used and sloshed and all this stuff, it gets a suction in there if there's no ventilation to the tank. Now, if you put ventilation to the tank, what? Gas wants to evaporate, so it evaporates out and your car smells like crud. So the vent system is designed to have positive pull of vapor that goes into the motor. The vapor goes into the motor at the base of the carburetor, and it ventilates the tank. All right. We have a 2-tank system, and on the top of each one of our tanks is a separate 3/8 port that was swedged in onto the metal. And by the way, if you do take your tanks down, you want to have that silver soldered, because what happens over the years, it hits the bottom of the coach, and it'll break, it'll loosen that thing, because all it's done is pinched on. Okay, so when you take your tanks down, silver solder that. Anyway, I had a picture of that and I forgot where it was, but on the top of the tank, there's a 3/8 line coming off of each one. And where does it head? It heads right here to this thing. This is, here, come on in, let me show you this. If you look behind your driver's side center wheel, you'll see this. It's a metal plate that you can actually bend that plate down, and inside there will be what's called the fuel vapor separator. Now, you guys that have a 73, an early 73, you'll have something that looks kind of like a Sir Walter Raleigh can with a whole pile of lines go up in there. We're going to get rid of that. It did not work. Okay, if you call me, I'll tell you how. But yeah, that did not work. And if you're going to be doing this system, we want to have the vapor system that they had from 74 on, but we want to add something, because all you guys know that have had these for any length of time, if this vapor system is not working absolutely perfect, you gotta just, maybe the first 10 or 20 gallons go in, 30, but when you get over that, you know how hard it is to get fuel in. And let me show you why. All right, here we go with my drawings again. I'll see what I can do. Okay, here's our fuel tank. Side view. Our fuel goes in on the side of the tank, not on the top of the tank like you see most everything else, like in a car or whatever. That fills up like this. Well, guess what? Air goes up and everything's fine. Because when you get the fuel going in here into this tank, when it gets above this level, the top of the hose, right there, when it fills up to right there, the fuel that's coming in has to push the fuel out of the way to get in the tank for the fuel to rise up. And when that happens, this area right in here gets pressurized. And that is what this vapor separator is for. All right, let's talk about that. All right, so we know that this line that we're talking about comes off the top of the tank and it goes over. Here they are right here, one for each tank. It comes over, and just below here, there's a T. Okay? And This is the 5/16. This is a single 3/8 coming out of the T. So let's do that. So here's your tanks down here. No, don't look at the thing. Coming off the top. This one line comes off this top of this tank, the one comes off the other tank. And right there behind the wheel is a T. It's a T fitting. And they come together. Okay? Then they come on up to this vapor separator. Now what's behind there? Right there. That's the vapor separator. It's called a fuel vapor separator. This unit, very interesting. It was only used on two vehicles, two GM vehicles. 1971 Corvette and a GMC. How about that? So the way this thing works, all right, let's draw this out. Oh, that's terrible. Anyway, you get the idea. All right, you can see it right here. Tapers up to the top. And what's in there, for lack of a better term, is a ping pong ball. Seriously, it's a ping pong ball inside that box. Now, understand when you buy this, this is a repop original one because there was enough to make them. The failure rate is pretty high on it. So when you order these from wherever you order them, what I want you to do is hold it just like that. Put a 3/8 hose on the one that's 3/8. Hold it up and pour water in it. Okay? Pour water in there. It should stop flowing and it should not have any water coming out this port. Okay? Also, there's the way this is made is molded plastic, and there's a plate here that's glued to the bottom. Okay? Got a good buddy out there on the road doing his fuel lines and everything on the road. Ordered these, and the top wasn't glued down on one of them. So when you get them in, check them out. Be sure they work properly and be sure they don't leak. All right? So the way this thing works, these two lines here come from the fuel tank. They tee together right behind the wheel, and it goes into the bottom of this thing right here. That's a 3/8 line. This is all 3/8 line, all 3/8 line. Okay? So as that fuel starts to get above the fill, it starts pressurizing above the tank like we were talking about, it also pushes fuel up into these vent lines. Okay? Which means that as you were filling, if those vent lines weren't hooked up to something, it would spill fuel on the ground. Right? And if it did not have some way to stop the fuel from going forward, you'd be shooting fuel out of the canister up front under the passenger seat. So if you ever have that problem, you're filling fuel and all of a sudden fuel starts to leak down under the passenger seat, this little booger is bad because it's allowing fuel to pass it. You follow what I mean? All right. Now, so as the fuel starts to fill into these lines and starts pushing up, this thing starts to fill up with water. Fuel. So as it fills up, it floats. It says it's a ping pong ball. So as this fills up with water, the ping pong ball floats. And it seals, it seals the output. This is a 5/16. It seals the output of this thing right here. You follow? So when you test it, when you're going to hold a hose up here and you're going to put water in, you're going to make that ball float up to the top so no water would come out. All right? So that's what this thing does. But remember this, these lines down here are 3/8 hooked up to the tank, coming up to that T. Oh, I got to tell you about that one. Coming up to this T down here and then going into the vapor separator. What you're seeing here is 1 3/8 line coming in and 1 5/16 line coming out. Make sense? Now, That 5/16 line, think about this a minute, because tucked up under the passenger seat on the frame rail right there, come on and take a look at this. Right there is your fuel vapor canister. See that? Now, in a California coach, there are two of them, which I'll talk to you in a little bit. It might be a good thing to do. But right there, all right. Now, what's inside that thing? Go ahead back. What's inside that thing is some activated charcoal, okay? And it's hooked up to the front of the carburetor. There's a 3/8 line hooked up to the front of the carburetor, coming off and going over to that thing. And what it's doing is it's sucking all the fumes through that carbon, okay? So here's the deal. Factory, you have a 5/16, there's a short rubber hose on there, but it's a 5/16 steel line running all the way up under the passenger seat up front. What, 15, 20 feet? And this is a 5/16. Now look at this. This is all 3/8. It goes into this thing and it cuts it down to a 5/16. In other words, it reduces the ventilation to those two tanks. You follow what I'm saying? Now over here, there's that canister you saw under there. Okay? That line is a steel line, and then it's got a rubber hose connected to it, and it goes to one of the vapor lines on the canister. Then the other one is the one that goes to the motor. All right? So this vent system is what you have. And the components in it, the only real component is this fuel vapor separator. Now, where are we going here? What are you doing to me? There we go. This fuel vapor separator right here. And what's it? Remember what it looked like right there. Now, this canister we talked about up front. Thing's been in there how long? What's the year of your coach? Did you ever change it? You know anybody ever did? No. It's an original canister. All right. In the manual, it says long life. Define long life. What's long life to a vapor canister? For decades, up until really almost when we stopped co-op. If a guy came in and things working, we left the canister in there. We really probably should have changed the canister. Now, that one component, that's another component that we talked about. This canister is right here. This is at a Summit. AC Delco, genuine parts, vapor canister. Their part number is 17113148. I'll have this at the bottom of the video. So you can buy that canister and put it in, and you will have a fresh system. But as you know, after you get 30 gallons in it, it starts to pump back, right? Throw some fuel at you, wait a little while, you cuss at it. Here's the way I will tell you to fill one right now with this current system with two tanks. And I'll tell you why in just a second. Pump it in as slow as you can. As slow as that thing will pump. I mean, pack a lunch. Pump it slow. You shouldn't have to do that again, but one time, pump it as slow as it'll go in there until it pops back. All right. And it'll spurgle, spit, burgle. You could pump probably 20 gallons in or something like that, so you don't have to have two lunches. But after you get some fuel in, you want to go as slow as you can until it pops back. Give it 30 seconds, and then go again like that, and then stop. Because when it pops back, what is happening is these fuel lines are filling up. This is floating up, stopping the ventilation to the tank. Now, coming out of the tank, along with that fill, is another line. It's a 1/2-inch pipe coming off that goes up to your fill where you're putting the gas in. You follow? Is that second line, it's a 1/2 inch. When this thing starts to pressurize, it pushes it up here, and that's what stops your fuel from uh, going. Okay, so if you didn't have this in here, that's why it feels real slow, because if you don't have any ventilation going on, it doesn't work. Now, I found something very interesting about the system. By the way, if you've got any questions, there'll be a picture of this at the end. And if you have any questions on it or comments, please give them to me and like the update or whatever. But if you have this system all good, it fills well, but it fills slow. Why? Because there's not enough ventilation between these two tanks from this point right here to that point right there. It's too long, too small of a line. All right. Now, how can we fix that? It's going to cost you a couple of bucks, but don't worry about it. Coming out of here, remember when we teed it in here? When they come up, we're not going to tee it anymore. No, sir. What we're going to do is we're going to put in another vapor separator. Okay? And run this line into that vapor separator. Now here, remember it goes all the way forward to the vapor canister underneath there. You can do it two ways. I had one ranch hand called me up, showed me pictures. He bent a 5/16 steel line all the way through the frame, all the way around the motor and over to, or behind the motor and over to that vapor canister. That's the right thing to do. But if you don't want to get into that, just tie wrap a 5/16 Gates barricade hose, lightly tie wrap that hose all the way along that steel line. You'll find it under there. And buy another vapor canister. Buy a second vapor canister, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving this thing more ventilation. The tank will have more ventilation, working exactly the same way that DOT and EPA and everybody else wanted it to do. And theoretically, we're not going to have any more fuel smell, but we'll be able to blow it in. Now, how do I know this might work? How do I know this might work? Coming back from Utah, I came back with one fuel tank. Okay. My tanks were so bad going out there that when we dropped them down, there was just no hope. And I actually took one of Chad's tanks that we had dropped out of his. Remember, we put that the dual fuel. I mean the big tank, the big aluminum tank in. So I got one of his tanks that were in really good shape. So thank you, Chad, for that. But what we did is we had it lined. It was $500. Okay. We had it lined and I put it back up in there. And I hooked it all back up into the vent system, all the fuel, everything, except only put in one tank. Follow? I went 114 miles, stopped, found a rose to smell, go pee, put gas in it. Never ran out of gas, never had a problem. And with one vapor separator to one fuel tank, I could stand at the next aisle and blow fuel in it. It was amazing. Okay, so my guess is that GM during those times, because it was a transition, they only used it in two vehicles. And during that transition, they came up with this Dumaflachi. And for one fuel tank, it was adequate. But when the guy probably said, well, we got two tanks, so just hook them, tee them right there and let's roll. No, he cut down the ventilation right there. We need more ventilation than one 5/16 line running that long. You follow? Doubling your ventilation will allow you to blow that fuel in a lot quicker. Okay, and you haven't broken any EPA laws either. I had one guy, and I honestly told him, he was on the road and had problems. So I told him to just take coming out of that vapor separator and make a P-trap loop and go down to the ground. Because theoretically, if that vapor separator did not leak any fuel and it had a loop P-trap in it, fuel would get in there, or water or whatever, and would not allow anything to go back up in there. And, he got on home with that. So that's a way to do it, where if you could not do it this way, for some reason. Okay, but venting that tank is really, really important. You know, some guy talks about it comes up to his gas tank and, you know, takes the cap off and it blows fuel at him. Well, there it is. His tank is not vented. If you take it off and it blows fuel, it's pressurized. May not be a lot, may just maybe, you know, that's not good. You need to check at least this vapor circuit to be sure the canister, the vapor separator, the lines aren't pinched or anything like that, because this should at least keep it from pressurizing. You follow? Now, online, they've got all kinds of canisters. There are hot rodders that have aftermarket vapor separators, all little tanks, all kinds of things. All right. Now, a lot of them will just have a container with an air filter in it, and figured by the time that thing filled up, you're gonna quit. That's not what you want. You want an actual something that blocks the fuel flow. But there are a lot of different ones you can go with. Like I said, the internet's got everything. The original ones are available at the GMC Specialty guys. They've got them, Jeff and Jim. So give them a call, get the right parts, double vent your system. You see how it works now, and you see why that'll work. All right, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for the attention. Thanks for your time. If this was any good, you know, if you're on YouTube, hit like. Guys, hitting like really helps the folks that are making everything. YouTube loves to see that, and you really help me if you do hit like. And if you're on YouTube, where I want you to come, then give me a comment. Say, yeah, that was good, or no, that was bad, or give me an addition to what we're doing. All right. Well, look, thanks again. We'll see you next time.